Hello and welcome to the Fierce and Flowing podcast. And I'm your host, Monique Renee. I'm a life and leadership coach, and I work with organizations and with women leaders to help them lead their lives intentionally and design sacred and successful lives. So, I am welcomed today by Giovanna Garcia Pons, and I want to thank her because you're used to seeing her here on a weekly basis, and we have switched the table. And I'm going to be interviewing Gio today and asking her about a time in her life where she had to make a fierce decision. So, Gio, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. I am absolutely fierce and fabulous. How about that for you?
Perfect intro.
Yes. No, humbly, I'm very, very excited to be here. You know, I really like to highlight other entrepreneurs, leaders, and I love your platform. I love the fiercely flowing conversation we're going to have, because it's also important that it's one of my missions to be very transparent about my fierce moments, so that if anything I can share out there with others that will help them in their journey, you know, the better I am.
Yeah, the more we share, the more we understand that we're not alone in our journeys, the easier it is for us to tune into what are those big decisions that we have to make to kind of catapult us forward. So with that, let's get started. The very first question I ask each of my guests is, take me back to a moment recently where you felt you had to make a fierce decision. What was that for you?
Yeah, and I first have to sit on the word fierce, and I can't help but feel fear with it.
Yeah.
But yet, when we get moments to be fierce and we look back on it, we realize, wow, you know what? That was a great move, a great decision, a great step, however you want to put context around it. And honestly, what I would share with your audience is that for me, it really starts with the journey that we're on.
Yeah.
And our journeys, we have several journeys throughout life, whether it's through our careers or personal life. And for me, one of my journeys, and the journey that I'm currently on, that I pretty much have now closed and I'm starting a different journey, I can recall of the root of it, like what starts our journeys. And I call that almost our fierce moment where we are faced with a decision. And for me, it was my career coming to an end. What I believed back then was my dream job.
Okay.
But it turns out that that really wasn't. But at the time, I really believed it was my dream job. And what did I have that dream job connected to? Is the same that most people out there have their jobs connected to, which is their safety and security when it comes to financially.
Absolutely.
So the root of my fierce moment is identified from financially. Where have I taken moments in my life where I had to make a financial decision that was unlike anything I've ever done, and it was fierce in how I did it?
Right. You know, you're speaking to something that is at the crux of a lot of insecurity out there in the world, something we're ashamed of speaking about. But we happen to live in a world where we prioritize our finances, where we prioritize, making it to that golden spot, right? And that usually equates to a great salary, a high position. Because I'm speaking to high achievers here, right? This is the audience that I work with. And I love working with high achievers because they have an incredible vision for themselves, but sometimes it's driven so hard by what we think it should look like initially. And I want to say something because I truly believe that in that moment, Gio, you were in the right place at the right time, right? Like, it was your dream back then, but it was the right dream at the right moment, because that's where it's a playground, right? For us to learn. And with all of those learnings, we get to realize, well, was this really what I needed? Was this really what I was after? And with those realizations and the school of hard knocks, right, that comes along with it, we get to almost redefine who we are, what our purpose is, and what's that next evolution of our dream and of that purpose, right? I can't tell you how many high achieving executives I work with that sit across from me, and I know you do too, who say, I've achieved everything that I set out to achieve. Why am I not happy? Why do I feel unfulfilled? I feel like there's an emptiness here, right? And it's typically because we're not paying attention to the right markers, right? That are aligned with who we are mentally, physically, spiritually. And so at that time, you were doing what was right, which was you had a dream, you went for it, you succeeded, you got that job. And then what I'm hearing is that the day that ended, for whatever reason, you had a mini midlife crisis. Yes.
Yes.
Take me back to the emotions.
Yeah.
Behind that.
Yeah. So absolutely, we can call it midlife crisis. Let's call it an awakening.
Awakening, I love it.
Or an intersection where I had to make a decision as to I can't continue straight, so am I going to take a right or a left? So I think that a lot of us also come to that intersection in our lives as well at one point. So for me, it was that in that moment, it hurt. Everything that I knew. However, where my very first fierce decision came from, which again was always backed by the security and safety of finances,
right,
because it's job related.
Sure.
I realized that I needed to pivot. And so where did I know to start was, what am I passionate about?
Yep.
And the answer to that and what I did, the beauty of it is that it has evolved. It didn't stay that way 6 years later, because it has been 6 years. So in that moment, my first fierce moment was investing in myself and saying, I'm going to go back to school.
Yep.
And I'm going to go and educate myself under the health umbrella. So health coaching, life coaching, transformational coaching, taking that fierce, bold move to say, I'm willing to invest in myself. I'm going to spend this money that is really scary, but I know that's the next step. That's going to move me forward. And that's exactly what it did.
Yeah.
In this, what I call 3-part journey.
Sure.
That was completed, actually, as a matter of fact. We're going to say yesterday.
Love it. Perfect timing, right? Yeah. And, these fierce moments typically, as you said, are attached to something much bigger, a root, right? And when I work with leaders, we always start with, our values, and spend a lot of time really getting into these belief systems that we've had from the beginning of time. And I think most of us can attach these emotions and beliefs around money, around security and safety, to how we were raised, circumstances that happened in our life, whether they happened to us directly or to our parents or to our siblings, family members, that had us believe that there was only, I could only be safe and secure if fill in the blank.
Yep.
Right. If I got a 6-figure job, if if I was supported by someone, it comes in many different forms, and what I know to be true is that these journeys don't end overnight. It takes a little bit of uncovering, making a realization, and then stepping into that realization, investing in ourselves, being able to understand that if I am worried about my safety and security, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to keep getting what I'm getting. So maybe I need to do it a little bit differently and invest in myself, even though I'm scared, even though I have no idea if this investment is the right one, right? And little by little, we keep testing the waters, and what we're doing is really testing our own fierceness, right? Am I capable of redefining this belief system and creating a new one that says, I'm going to change the energetics of how I see money, of how I see safety and security. And because I know you a little bit, and we can dive a little bit deeper into this, I know that it has been a journey, a scary one. And yet what you're doing is so brave, Gio, because you're taking that belief and really throwing it out the window and saying, I got to shift this completely, do a 360 and do the scariest thing possible so that I can transform this and transform the way I see myself, I see my purpose, I see money, and how I begin to attract real wealth in my life.
Yeah, and a couple things come to mind with that. First of all, a quote that I heard from actually a coach that I purchased several things from. And she said, "You're going to wonder how to do it until you wonder how you did it." So for me, I wonder, how in the world did I do it in investing the amount of money that it took to get me where I am today and taking a chance on myself when I didn't have it? And that's the beauty of that quote of, I did it, but I don't know how I did it. I just took the steps every day to do it.
Right.
And that was very uncomfortable. But all I could hang on to in this journey is that I knew there was something better for me, that this was not how life ended for me and how I was going to live it out. So that would be my biggest piece of information to give people, is that you can feel it. And if you know that this is not the moment that you live out for the rest of your life, then keep going, because now you can put aside that fear and you have that belief of, no, I know there's something greater and bigger for me.
Yeah.
So those really were the two things that allowed me to set that aside, all the beliefs. I mean, I still had to work on that, but it was just knowing that I was able to start progressing and do things. I don't know how I did it. I don't know where the money showed up, to be honest with you.
Because you believed it would. And I think that that's really important to talk about. You know, I have been on that journey too, of course. You know, if I'm going to name my brand Fiercely Flowing, you know that I've done the work as well, right? And I think more and more what I love about the work that so many individuals are doing today, entrepreneurs, coaches, trainers, you know, therapists, is we have given ourselves permission to do the work with others and support them in making the transformations that we're also making in our own lives. You know, and I firmly believe I'm never going to hire a consultant. I'm never going to hire a coach who's not doing their own work and who's not making those investments that you're talking about, because it takes someone who believes in their transformation in order for us to be able to create those transformations, right? For ourselves and for those that we're working with. And let's talk about energy. You know, at the core of what I do, I'm an energy coach, you know, and I believe that everything has a vibration. Everything is energy. Money is energy. And energy flows, right? And what prevents energy from flowing is when we don't believe something is possible, right? And when we limit ourselves, okay? And so I love to tell people, and I love to say it to myself every single day, if I can see something, if I can see something different manifesting in my life, if I can picture myself in the place where I know I need to be, where I desire to be, then it is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
If we can see it, it is possible and it can happen, right? And the work is in making those tiny little shifts when we hit the wall of fear. And I know that you've been doing a lot of work, right? And your episodes recently have been all about fear.
Yeah.
And so what I'm learning from you and observing you and watching you is that you are so good at making those shifts immediately. You don't stay at the lower energy level for too long, right? And we're human.
Yeah.
We're going to go up and down. That's what energy does. Energy rises and it falls.
Yeah.
And when we are in those moments of low energy, I call it catabolic energy, because it steals energy away from us. It steals our ideas away from us. It keeps us safe and secure in the wrong way. Instead of expanding, we're contracting, right? When we feel those moments, we have to do the work of shifting, right? And there are so many different ways to shift. We can recognize what we're saying to ourselves and shift the thought. We can recognize the emotion and sit and maybe take a deep breath, do some mindfulness work, do some energy work, and get us emotionally back into a place where we've shifted our energy. We can go for a run and sweat it out. How do you Gio, shift it moment to moment? What works for you?
Wow. So you just said so much that I can literally pick apart and come off of. But I think I'm going to start in saying that, what if you're someone out there who is not in the position yet to be able to imagine or see what they want, because that often happened with me on my journey. We all want something and want to manifest something, but what happens when you don't really know what that is?
Yeah.
So first, and this is answering your question as well, is that the first thing that I've done is that I surrounded myself with a support system that was going to be that extension to create that vision for me. So surrounding myself around people who believed in me, so that when I did feel that way or I felt that energy lull, I would turn to them and be transparent and say, oh, I'm not feeling so great today. I'm not really a believer. Can you tell me again, what are you envisioning for myself? Can you give me that vision? Because once I received a vision or that thought from someone, then I can determine, is that something in alignment of what I believe and what I want? And so that would be my building block to start.
Right.
So first and foremost, having the people surrounded around me that believed in me to be able to shift that energy.
Yeah.
And then from a day-to-day, just tactical, for me, I'm very active. So meditation for me is not sitting, closing my eyes and receiving. For me, it's movement. So believe it or not, taking a walk by myself, and whether I have music on or not, or it's a podcast or whatever it is, I found that those are the moments that reset me and I get the clarity.
Yes.
Because it's the moment that I can be present, because if I'm not watching where I'm walking, I'm going to trip. So that's definitely another easy way for me to do that. And then I'd say that the third one is feeding myself. And I mean literally feeding myself with yummy food, with yummy conversation. Those are the things that immediately will shift the energy and how I'm feeling. However, what I will tell you is I've recognized that sometimes it's not the time to shift that energy, that it's there to teach me something. So I'll sit in it.
Yeah,
I'll
of
also
course.
recognize to sit in it.
That's really important. And I don't think we speak about that enough. I see the environment changing quite a bit, where we are giving ourselves permission to just be, right? And that's the flow part of a lot of the work that I do is, can we be kind and loving to ourselves, right? We can't, let's observe nature, the way nature creates and destroys. Right? We're always in a cycle. And if we don't allow ourselves to go through the natural cycles, we're hurting ourselves, right? And we'll never find that clarity. So part of finding the clarity is giving ourselves, allowing ourselves to go through those moments. And there are going to be moments where we're just not going to see it clearly. We have to clear before we create the clarity, right? And sometimes we just have to sit in it and feel it, right? And let ourselves cry, let ourselves scream, let ourselves say, I don't know, and it's okay that I don't know for a while. So let me stop trying to figure it out and let me go do something else, whether it's nourish yourself with food, go for a walk, call a friend and just shift your mindset for a moment. Take a nap. Things that we normally as high achievers don't allow ourselves to do because we feel we're wasting time. What we're actually doing is resetting our energetic bodies so that we can find that clarity. I know we can continue talking forever about energy, about shifting. I want to go back really quickly to something you said earlier that I think is important. As you said, for those individuals who are trying to figure out how to find that purpose, right? How do I reconnect with the light inside of me, with my talents, with what I feel I'm here to do and the impact that I'm here to make? When you were in that moment, in your fierce moment, where you had to let that dream go, the door closed on it, and you had this time period where you weren't sure who you were, what you were going to do, how did you realize that your next step was investing in health coaching? How did you come to that realization. Yeah.
So absolutely great question. And what really sticks out for me is that I'll never forget. So this happened to me, this whole journey started when I had turned 40. So I was around 41. And at that moment, I said, how do I get back to who I am? So the first step was figure out, who am I? Because I had been defined by this role for so long.
Right.
And so what I immediately did was I started calling people that knew me in my 20s, because I truly believe that in our 20s, we are our authentic self. Like, that's when we really start having fun. We have the freedom. We travel. We're dating, finding the loves of our lives.
We're figuring things out.
Exactly. And so I literally started calling up people, whether it was people I dated before, whether it's friends that I had, and I just asked a simple question. What was your experience of me? Can you tell me who I am or who I was back then? And what was interesting is, and this is why I love assessments, because I think assessments today are a shortcut to that.
Yeah.
And what I started realizing is that everyone had a common denominator that started revealing not just who I was, but what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And even when I went back to, believe it or not, an elementary friend, she said, Gio, I remember that we were literally in 6th grade, and you would tell me, if you focus on holding your stomach in really tight, it will always be toning it in some kind of way.
You don't have to do sit-ups, just hold it in all day.
And even back then, there was passion around health and wellness. And so it's like all of a sudden these little life preservers,
it's like sparks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Started popping up to the surface, and I started collecting them. So that's how it started, was I simply went back and just asked people, please tell me your experience of me. Describe me.
Yeah.
And that's where it started and led me back.
I love it. That's great. Feedback is amazing, and at the core of leadership, at the core of personal development is awareness, right? And part of the awareness is, yes, asking ourselves the questions, taking assessments. There's so many assessments that I use, as you know, spiritual assessments, but also, very practical business assessments that help to uncover who we are, right, at our core. And, but being able to get feedback from people, and sometimes we're afraid of the feedback, right? But it can be so eye-opening and really remind us of that spark that we have that we're here to use. Right? That gets lost with the black and white of daily life, of the should do's and the must be's versus who do I really want to be? And sometimes I may be afraid of showing people, my true colors and who I am. Okay, so this fierce moment, 3-part fierce moment that you spoke to, that really at the core of it was this concept of safety and security. You flipped it on its head. By investing in yourself, by realizing that it's important for you to take a risk, with sometimes the finances you didn't even have.
Correct.
And I know, and that what you were doing was really shifting your energetic field and putting it into a place where possibility could meet you, right? Where the new possibility could meet you, the new opportunities could find you, which are happening to you today. We tried to have this fierce conversation a year ago, and we did, but it was like 2 girlfriends in a backyard, and the recording wasn't good. And there's no surprise that we're here today, because it's been a year and so much in your life has changed since then. And you've been going through everything you've been sharing with us today. So who is Gio today? Share with us, what is the work that you're doing? What is this new version of Gio that is living in her purpose, is living in awareness, is making those powerful shifts moment to moment? And how are you proud of yourself?
Great question. I would answer that by who's Gio today is that I've been able to pull in truly who I am today. I know my strengths. I can tell you that I organize well, I implement, I plan, and I execute. That's my tactical get it done. But on the other side, it's what I'm calling my human factor side.
Okay.
So today I'm combining both things, which is the doing and the being. The being is the human factor that I think a lot of businesses, entrepreneurs today have lost touch with. And I'm saying, let's bring it back to the table.
Yeah.
And so who Gio is today is someone who can execute, right? Because I can do. But the beauty of it, and this is the big lesson that I've learned in the last 6 years that have allowed me to step into my power and allow for now my business to thrive, open up even globally, because now I'm opening up my doors to Dubai. I'm like, what is that?
Love it.
Is the fact that we are taught to be strong on the outside and vulnerable on the inside.
Yeah.
And to me, the human factor is how do we reverse that 180 and have people be so aware of themselves that you're so confident that you can show up vulnerably, because there's a power in being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you're not afraid. You don't have that fear. You don't have that limiting belief holding you back. Because if anything happens to you, guess what? You're strong on the inside.
Absolutely.
And nothing's going to take you down. Who cares if you get disappointment? You can move forward. So that's who I am today. I'm vulnerable on the outside. I'm transparent. I'm willing to endure all of these emotions and feelings that may be negative, while doing and combining both of them into helping businesses and individuals. Tell them what's going to happen before it happens, right? Declutter a little bit, get their ROI back on track, and then, of course, with this whole icing on top, which is the profiling piece.
Yeah.
But that's Gio, bringing behavior and awareness back so that nothing can stop us in what it is that we want.
Yeah.
So I guarantee you that you work with me now, you're going to get what you want.
I love it, Gio. Thank you. Yeah, vulnerability is huge today. And again, I think as a society and in the business world, in the corporate world, I'm seeing it. More and more I'm getting calls from leaders who want to achieve more balance in their lives. They want the flow, and we can have both. You're speaking to the yin and the yang of life, right? We can be fierce. We can be go-getters. We can have these incredible, goals and visions for our life and work hard to achieve them. But at the same time, we can have very meaningful, intentional, balanced lives that don't kick us into having to call a health coach, right? We don't want to get to that point where our health is suffering, right? And for me, in me observing this for 20 years now, working with leaders, I attribute it to getting out of our mind and getting into our heart. Right. And I can tell you that from my own fierce moments, when I've made those incredibly fierce moments, fierce decisions that sometimes took me 20 years to make, it's when my mind and my heart were aligned. Right. When we weren't fighting with each other. Right. And we have to find ways to clear that channel. And through the vulnerability is where we're able to connect with others and really create those relationships that will last a lifetime in business and in lives, right? Speaking to that community that supported you in helping you see who you were.
Yeah, and vulnerability really is where you know everything you need to know, you have the answers, and you know exactly what needs to be done. So it's where the clarity is. It's really where the magic is. And I know it's tough. It's really tough because, we've all been jaded. We've all had our experiences. But I would just encourage people, listen, keep going, because vulnerability is also where your intuition is. So when that gut speaks to you, that is your vulnerability. And most of us just put it aside. So just keep going. Know that if you don't feel right, reach into your support system, ask the questions, educate yourself, get as much of information, because information eventually becomes transformation.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so we're going to start wrapping up, but I want to talk a little bit about flow.
Okay.
It's what I'm really most passionate about, because I believe that we can have it all. And And through our intuition, through our awareness, understanding ourselves, understanding our desires, our purpose, our talents, our weaknesses, and kind of bringing that all together into a clear picture, we can really live our lives in a way where we have less stress, less overwhelm, and we're achieving more. And we're really hitting those markers that we're after in a pleasurable, fun way and experiencing expansion. What is your best strategy for yourself, Gio, in finding that equilibrium, that flow? Is there a strategy that you use that is kind of like your superpower that helps you to find that place?
Yeah, very simple. You know, I'm a very structured person, methodical, very analytical. And so for me, it's about my routine. I set my routine and I stick to that because I know that as long as I do those small things every single day, I know eventually they're going to add up to something.
Yeah.
And even the days that are not well. So for me, it's making sure that I have my day set up. I know that I have myself in there, my business in there, my children in there, my friends in there. Whatever my 5 priorities are, I take care and I feed them on a daily basis. And I just churn it over and over and over.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Thank you for this space. Thank you for spending this time with me. So for all of you, thank you for joining us again. This is the Fierce and Flowing Podcast. I'm Monique Renee, and you can find us anywhere where you listen to your podcasts. You can also look up Fierce and Flowing Podcast on YouTube. And if you want to find it all in one place, just head over to my website, fiercelyflowing.com. You'll also learn a little bit more about me, the work that I do, and you can connect with me there. So thank you for being with us, and I wish you a beautiful day of being fierce and also experiencing flow.